description below. Get a copy, definitely check it out. Now there's a bunch of new features that are found in Luminar 4.2, and we're probably going to be going through some of those over the next couple weeks, but the one that I want to focus on is the AI augmented sky. In this viewing mode, you can see all the different pictures that I've imported into the software, but I'm going to go up here into single view mode, and this is going to allow me to edit each image individually. A long time ago back in Charleston, but check this out. Everything is not quite as it seems. If I come down here to their creative panel and go to AI sky replacement and toggle this off, you can see I really didn't have a great sky the night that I shot this image, but with sky replacement, Luminar makes it really easy to add really any sky that you want in there. So you can see how powerful this is, and get all these water droplets to layer on top of the sky and to get all these kite lines and everything. This would be a pretty tricky image, but Luminar does it with literally a click of a button. Here's an image that I shot over Central Park looking back down towards Manhattan. And again, I really didn't have the best sky. Let me go ahead and turn this off so you can see what it looked like before. It was just kind of a hazy, typical New York sky. And I love the mood. I was up there at the perfect time of day. I could shoot with a really wide aperture and get all the city lights and street lights and everything turned on. I love this time of day. But as you can see, my sky really doesn't work well with this image. So let me show you what I did here. I'm going to go ahead and reset this whole sky replacement. And I'm going to come down here to sky selection. If I click on this, it's going to import the sky. And as you see, it doesn't look really good where it placed it. So I can use the horizon position and pull it down so that it's going to be in a more realistic orientation. And once I have this in place, I can use the horizon blending slider to really fine-tune exactly how the sky will blend into my scene. Now if you've and this is a great example. We have so many buildings with spires. You can see the Empire State Building and the One World Trade Tower back there. This would take a long time to do this manually, but luckily Luminar, I mean, it does such a good job really with just these two sliders right here. If you find that your sky is a little too bright or not bright enough, you can come down here to advanced settings and we can start messing with things like sky exposure, which will either lighten or darken the sky. We can also introduce atmospheric haze, which is going to clean up the sky, or add a little bit of haze depending on if you're in a pristine nature environment or if you're in an urban city like New York. And we can also change the sky temperature. So if your image that you're importing is really warm but your scene is really cool, you're going to want to balance those so that it looks natural and believable. In this case, it's kind of a blue hour, so I'm going to actually make my sky a little bit cooler. And you can see the natural purples and magentas from the original file are now represented in the sky file that I had before. So it's really important to pick an image that already matches your scene. So you're going to want your sun in the same position as when you shot your photograph. And then you're also going to want, I wouldn't want bright sunny skies. I would want kind of an overcast vibe so that it matches the overall scene. Now here's an image that I shot in a desert in Dubai. And if you've ever been out in a desert environment and you're trying to shoot late in the day and get all the nice shadows, many times your sky goes pure white. That's just the nature of trying to capture something with a high dynamic range. Now I could come down here in Luminar and come to the Essentials tab, and if I go to AI Enhance and bring back my AI Enhancer, you can see it's trying to bring back some detail in the sky, but there was absolutely no clouds, so there's really not a lot to bring back. So I'm going to come down here and let's just turn on the sky that I wound up liking. So you can see what I did here just a few minutes ago. And it's just a really simple sky that I dropped in there. And then if I pull up the horizon position, you'll be able to see what this original file looked like. This image was actually taken at a beach. And because the sun is on the right side of the frame, I want to make sure that matches up perfectly. If it wasn't on the right side, you can just hit this flip sky and watch what it'll do. It'll flip your whole image, which actually looks a little crazy. It almost feels like this could be a dune like at the ocean, but we know that's not accurate because our sun is in two different locations in this image. So I'm going to flip this back. And you know, an image like this with this position looks absolutely ridiculous. But if I start bringing the horizon position down, something like that looks really natural. And for me, when I have a really nice sky, this probably isn't an awesome image for like a landscape portfolio. But what I might do is then go into the studio later at a different time, get somebody in a nice outfit that looks like they fit in the scene, shoot them with the same lighting, mountains from the background, and then put them in a window or just completely change the scene of a studio shot just by adding little elements of images that I've taken over the years. Now before I drop a sky into this image, let's go to AI and we can go ahead and bring up the AI sky enhancer and see what this does. Let's just crank that all the way to 100. And just like the previous image, there's really not any detail in the sky. It's slightly blown out, but there's no clouds either. If I bring up the AI accent, see what this does. Now this does a really great job of adding some contrast in my entire scene. And with one slider, I'm already at a point where this image pops really well. But of course, I need to replace the sky. So let's come down here to the creative panel. Let's go to AI sky replacement and let's find a sky. And as you can see, the ocean is in the frame, so this makes absolutely no sense. But while the ocean is here, let me just show you what it's doing. It's just adding such a perfect mask all the way around these mountains. And as you saw in some of the images before, some of these masks are easier than others. This one actually would be fairly easy to make yourself, but the beauty with this software is you don't have to make anything at all. So I'm just going to start bringing the horizon position down until we can get the ocean out of there. It's actually kind of a cool shot to have the ocean. It almost looks believable, but there's no ocean anywhere near Arizona here. So we're going to keep going down. Maybe around there is pretty good. In here, you can see my foreground is nice and sharp, but then my background is kind of blurry. I can actually come down here and start to defocus my sky so that it matches the same depth of field. I wouldn't want my clouds super sharp if the mountains in the distance are starting to go out of focus. So with sky defocus, I can come in here and start really blurring this. Of course, all the way over to the right is going to be way too much blur, but maybe something around like 10 would give a natural appearance. Exposure up just a little bit. Since the sky would be the brightest thing in the image, I don't want it too dark because I have a lot of highlights here on this back mountain and I don't want my sky to look like it's not as bright as other elements in the scene. In the sky, you can use some of these other settings like close gaps and sky local, and that's going to help you really tweak the mask that Luminar is making automatically. If you have any weird haloing or anything, you're going to be able to tweak that here in the advanced settings. I'm actually shooting over the Brooklyn Bridge. I absolutely love this image. I'm just waiting and dying to print this large because it's got so much detail. Really cool shot. But if we wanted to do some crazier things, we can actually start to add elements into this image. But let me show you what you can do with the new Augmented Sky module. So if I come down here to the Creative panel, click AI Augmented Sky, they have this object selection drop-down menu, and as you can see, you're going to be able to do a lot of things. They have the Aurora Borealis. You can drop in different balloons, birds, clouds, fireworks, moon, mountains, all kinds of crazy stuff. Let me see here. Let's go down to fireworks would be kind of cool. And what it's doing is it's taking a PNG file that's in the database or one that you upload yourself, and it's layering it in perfectly, but it's using the same masking techniques for the sky that they use in the sky replacement. So if we zoom in here, you can see it is perfectly masking out all of the buildings and dropping in these fireworks. And when you zoom out, it looks pretty compelling. If we hit place object, I can pick this up and move it anywhere I want. And without making any masks whatsoever, I could just throw this thing anywhere I want and it's perfectly masking it out in real time. It's pretty amazing. This is super cool. Let's try some other things here. Let's do a Peter Lick technique. Let's spin this around and we can drop it right in there. So of course this moon looks pretty ridiculous. And to start masking out all of these buildings would be pretty time consuming, especially up here on the spire. I mean, that's pretty amazing that this software can do this. See, they have plane. Let's click that. There we go. That's a little bit happier. It's actually St. Patrick's Day today. That makes a lot of sense. Got this image for a Puerto Rican photo challenge. This is another frame that I didn't wind up using. Come down here to object selection. Let's see what we could do. Let's load this in here. And if I hit place object, I can click on this, resize my birds, put them anywhere that I want. Now these birds are really high res, so I could actually zoom out and make them much larger. Do something like that. It's pretty cool. And since the birds are all backlit, these were actually shot at the exact same time that I took this image. There's really not a lot that I need to do here. Of course, if you had files that were cooler or warmer than the scene, you would want to warm them up or cool them down. Oh, look at that. That's Fitzroy. That's in Argentina. I actually had this same file here that I was going to try to do something with, but they have that as one of the stock images for their augmented sky. So that's pretty funny. So I wouldn't recommend using this file because everybody knows exactly what that is. But if you wanted to use a more generic mountain or a hill or something, you can really start to become extremely creative by making your own altered land by mixing in these different elements.